my channel. I'm Lamb. Round 10 will be soon upon us. Some important trades that we'll have to make for this week. So I'm here to give some insights into what we could do. The main talking points are is Collier Dawkins still a viable option, and what premiums underpriced or premiums that we are right for the picking for this week. So I'll talk about the rookies. There's no rookies on the bubble this week. None are playing their third game that are really worthwhile. Only O'Connor, Briggs, the two players that played last week that we'll probably be looking out for on the bubble this week. But I wouldn't go early on any of them. Their job security isn't any good. But there is certainly a downgrade option if you did miss Collier Dawkins last week. I still see him at 180k, still a bargain. He's got a brilliant role at Richmond. If he cleans up his disposal efficiency, that 88 will turn to 100. And I don't see Richmond bringing back their guns quickly, so I see him having that role for a fair while in time. And if he does, I feel like he's at worst going to average 75, which will still get him up to that 350 mark. That still makes you 170k from his price point. He has a break even of negative 22 this week, so if you'd missed him, I would certainly have a look. If you're doing a downgrade upgrade, certainly look at bringing him in this week. You could downgrade Power to him and make 170k and upgrade somewhere else. Or with a different rookie and then upgrade Powell this week. Powell certainly tradable, should be traded this week with a break even of 109. So definitely an option. You could also go Poulter if you did miss him. Mid forward, he's probably not going to average an 80, 75 like Collier Dawkins. He could average that 60 mark at 174. If you're desperate for a downgrade, it wouldn't stop you from doing that. He's got a nice little wing role at Collingwood. I don't see him missing games. And I'd probably make 130k. Is that worth a trade? If that gets you to a gun primo, then I would do it. But if it is just a downgrade for cash, I'd probably... and still get you to the primo that you want, but it will be handy throughout the buys, especially he has a last buy as well, so you can play him for 4 weeks and then offload him in round 14. That's another positive with Poulter as well. That's pretty much it for the rookies. They're slowing down a bit. Burns I probably wouldn't touch anymore. Good old Flinney with 103 last week. Hopefully get some games. Certainly don't trade him out yet. If Muffer does play, I'll still hold. I'm waiting for him to get to that 450-ish, 400. I think he can get there the way he's going. Just needs 3 or 4 more games. He certainly will get the 3 or 4 more games. It just depends whether that's in 10 rounds time or in 4 rounds time. We just have to wait and see. They did put a fairly good effort, them two combined. They halted Nankovas a little bit during that game. So hopefully GWS keep going with those two for a fantasy perspective, for a Supercoach perspective. But we'll just have to wait and see on that. It's unfortunate for people that went early on Frederick. It's a bit disappointing. The sub rule has been a bit of a pain so far. Little snipe. I probably wouldn't target him at all, but Jesse Hogan's gone 90 in the last 2. GWS is playing much better than they have been. Absolute desperate times you could go a 300k on pick him up for 300k. I'd probably see him going that 85ish. But with forwards, they always have a massive ceiling. If Gidovis plays a North or a Collingwood, I think they play North in 2 weeks' time. He could score 120 and be a positive pick, but it is a little bit of a waste of trade as such. There's no real other options that I'll be looking to talk about. We get on to the main points. Before that, I might just see any other mid prices that I would be happy with targeting. Harms. I don't think it's too late to bring him in at 377. He showed us last week he does have the mid role. Just didn't probably score to his role, but I feel like if he plays that same thing next week, he averages probably 95 from then on, which I see most are probably 10 unders what you want for a D6, but you're paying 150k less. And he does have the last buy, so if at worst he can be used as a stepping stone to a big primo. And other options that are underpriced. If you did trade Dusty, 59% of you have him. Pretty much 90% of people are playing. He has just that ceiling that not many players at 400k do. Certainly an option that I would be looking at if you don't have him as such. Richmond probably start to slowly hit form by end of season, and that's when he starts to post his big numbers for the year. So I'd probably see him averaging 100 plus, and price at 400. That's certainly a bonus to having your team. Ridley is soon to hit rock bottom with his price as well. He was priced at 630. He's got the ability to average 130 in 4 weeks. So if he picks up that form back, price at 480, he is way unders. So he's a cheapish primo to bring in. I see him being probably top 6 at the end of the year. Another one, I don't know if he's on here, but Daniel is another one. He's probably a bit of a frustrating pick if you've had him, but he's another one that's, I think, bottoming out in price soon and could be brought in, but I would go probably Ridley over him. There's no overly other ones I'll be looking at. Heppel's got a half-decent role at Essendon, but that mid spot, you don't really want to be spending 400k on a midfielder. Sean Darcy's been very surprising, averaging 111 his last 3, but with the big 2, he does become irrelevant. Tom McDonald is another one, another forward that, with Melbourne playing well and playing Adelaide next week, he's probably going to end up with the lack of forward options being a top 8 forward this year. 2.8% owned. Certainly a pod. I am looking at a forward at this price bracket. I'm either going Hall, Hind, or McDonald. McDonald does have the last buy, which does help, because I think most forwards are in that middle, either that first or second buy. But always key forwards can put that 30 score and just ruin a week for you. So it will be a tough decision what I make from there. At this very stage, I have Hall 1, McDonald 2, Hind 3. But me bringing Hall in gives me 3 round 12 buy players, whereas bringing in McDonald, he'll be my first buy player for that round, for the forward position. So and he'll have a low break even as well, lowish break even for that price. So I'll probably go Dusty over McDonald. If you were picking between the two, I already have Dusty, but McDonald is certainly a pod option that's flying under the radar just a little bit. There's Hind again. He's he's had a good season, would have been a great starting pick. Um, but I feel like there's plenty of options in the forward line other than him to target, and probably wouldn't go both two of Hind, Hall, and McDonald. I feel like they're F6, F5 possible quality, and it's just a risk that if one fails, he's stuck there for the rest of the season. That's what you have to make. That's what you have to think mainly now. Do I want this player in round 23? If I don't, probably not the best option unless you've got plenty of trades and you can use them as stepping stones. But that is a risky ploy, but sometimes can work out. Hardwick's had a surprising season this year as well. I probably wouldn't target him as such. With Hawthorn doesn't have the greatest of form. It certainly will get a lot of ball down back, but like those, I don't know. North Melbourne seems to like to chip it around a lot. I'll say to Hawthorn, but I don't. He's just a name that I wouldn't want to mess with at this very stage. So those are some underpriced players that you could be looking at. Gawn is making his way down the price ladder. So if you do have if you are playing a Flynn or a Tilthorpe, or there's probably a rare number of people not with Gawn. Certainly in probably 2 weeks, be perfect to bring in. Probably at like 550k ish, which would be very nice for you guys to bring in. Now some primo options that you could look to target in the coming weeks. This all depends on your buyers as well. I do like to have at most 2 defends, 2 forwards, 3 mids. You can't really control the rucks with Gawn and Grundy on the same buy, but you'll have Flynn hopefully covering one of those weeks. So any of these 600 Lions, Bontempelli, Guthrie, Oliver, fairly highly owned player. Lions isn't, but Bontempelli and Oliver, probably more your safe picks if you near the top and want to minimise your differences. But if you're chasing points, Guthrie and Lions are certainly options. Guns without Dangerfield and Neil playing, I feel like they probably lose about 5 to 10 points with the others back. But while they're not there, very nice picks. I'm also looking at McCluggage. He hasn't gone under 110 his last 5, averaging 128. He's been a very good pick if you picked him up. Price at has 3.4 percentage in 3.4% of teams. So a pod that I am actually looking at bringing him in this week. It's either he or the next option, Kelly. Price 75k from his starting price. He's averaged 124 in his last 3. GWS is slowly bouncing back with Whitfield coming back. He is definitely an option. My only worry is his injury history. He rarely can play out a full season, and it's just with being tight on trades this year after messing around a bit early, he does become a little bit of a risky option, whereas a McCluggage and any of those guys are probably safer, even though you're paying that 50k extra, just a little bit safer injury-wise. Taranto's another possibility you could look to bring in as well, along with Josh Kelly, but I'd probably long for if you're picking a round 23 player, you want any of those top 5 in your team. Parrish is a surprising one that might come under people's thoughts, especially if Merritt continually gets tagged. He gets off the chain, averaging 120 in the last 5. Probs, as he's gone up 100k already, and he hasn't had the history of performing like this in the past, I probably would leave him he'll probably end up as that 12 to 15 midfielder. But I wouldn't put against it. People bring him in as well. Cunnington's another underpriced. I feel like at 490, he has with North slowly getting better. I wouldn't call them getting better, being good, but slowly on the up. They did only play Hawthorn last week, so nothing to be highly talked about. But he's definitely an option. Contested beast. Doesn't need many possessions to get 100. And his injury issues is pretty much gone now. I don't want to jinx it because he's a gun player. I have got a bit of bias involved, but he's a great player to watch. Contested beast, and as you've seen, midfield scores have been struggling against North. It's we've got a pretty. He seems to be the one that gets the ball out of the middle every single time. It's just our forwards are pretty average, so the disposal efficiency sometimes is let down, but he's just in and under giving the handball, so he's not really kicking into the 450. So he's definitely an option as a midfielder. Defenders I like, and Mills, as I talked about last week, got a lovely mid-roll. Doherty, Salem, they're probably the main three. Stewart, even Short is half an option, but probably those three are more top six types to bring in this week. Duncan, loved him last week, and hopefully he continues his form. It looks like a good matchup against Gold Coast this week. So if you are bringing a Geelong player, Duncan or a Guthrie, I feel like one of them at least is going 140, and they're probably combined going at worst 240 combined, or 250 combined. So certainly an option there. Maybe I'll scan this into forwards. Zorko's also a target if you. I think he's nearly a guaranteed top six forward at the end of the year. And I explained my whole behind before that. So that's my trade talk for round. Oh, just before I wrap up, Lloyd is also bottoming out in price. Laird, if you haven't got him, is a must. And then I talked about Daniel coming up on the rise as well. So that's about it. Good luck with your team's trades this week. Hit me up below if you have any queries. Happy to answer. And I'll be back on Thursday with previewing my trades, giving some captain tips and possible loophole options. So till then, have a good week and thanks for listening.